Hey guys, welcome to the show. I'm Tejera, your host, and this is Industry Standard. My guest today is Will Steven. He's one of the most prolific writers at SNL. He's known for his viral sketches often played by Bowen Yang. He's been nominated for 11 Emmys and won an Emmy for his song Come Back Barack. Will knows a thing or two about making you laugh, and he's here today to break it down. Stay tuned, and thanks for watching. Will, thank you so much for coming onto the show today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. This is fun.
This is great. I am so excited to talk to you. I'm a really, really big fan. I've seen so many of your skits.
Thank you.
You were just telling me how you first got onto SNL.
Yeah. I wanted to get into comedy, and I got involved with the UCB Theater here in New York, the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater, and I was performing there, and I started writing for the website College Humor, which is now Dropout, has now become Dropout. And I was hosting their live shows at UCB. They had like a monthly live show. And the people from TEDx New York, the TED company or whatever you call it, reached out to College Humor and wanted someone to do a comedy talk. They wanted a young person, someone who was new, to do some sort of comedy talk. And so they recommended me. And I said yes, but I had nothing. I didn't know what to do at all. And I panicked a few days before and quit and told them I wasn't going to do it. And then they convinced me to give it a day or two to think about it. And I talked it over with some friends, and a friend suggested, well, you could do it about how you have nothing to say. And I thought some more about that, and I ended up doing a TED Talk about how to sound smart in a TED Talk when you have nothing to say. And it was terrifying, but it was really fun. And from there, I kind of got agents and performed at the Just for Laughs Festival in 2015. And then SNL saw me there and asked me to audition. And so I auditioned as a performer in 2015, and then they hired me as a writer.
That's crazy. And that was 10 years ago.
Yeah, this is my 11th season, which is crazy.
Since then, you've written so many skits that have gone viral, that have millions of views, that are kind of like household skits in this country. I mean, everyone, even Tristan and I were just talking about
Really?
Come Back Rock. My family knows your skits.
Oh, funny.
My family lives in Spain, for context.
Do they really?
They know your skits.
Wow.
So I just want to, there has been such an impact from your writing. And I've always been curious where you get your inspiration from. Is it are you chronically online? Are you always reading the news?
I'm pretty online. I'm reading the news quite a lot. I come from a family of journalists. Both my parents were journalists. They're retired now. But I think I naturally just sort of pay attention to stuff like that all the time. And I have a note on my phone of like random snippets of ideas that go back years. And sometimes I'll just go through that. And it's surprising what kind of little germs of an idea can come back later and mix with something else. And just this past week, we wrote a sketch with Sabrina Carpenter, this podcast thing, the Snack Homies.
Can you tell us what that skit is about?
So that is based on the MD Foodie Boys, which is a real podcast of real kids talking about food in Maryland. And I'd seen that a few years ago and loved that, and written it down as like a funny sort of archetype of I just imagined the women in our cast as little boys, and I was enjoying that and waiting for the right host who could do it, and then Sabrina Carpenter just kind of made sense. But that's an example of something occurs to me as like, oh, that could be fun, but it wasn't the right week, and so I kind of held on to it for a year or something. And then it ends up being the right moment.
So do you come up with the idea first, and then you're like, oh, I need to wait for the right host, the right person, or do you ever think, oh, I have this performer in mind and I want to write something specifically for this performer? Like, which one tends to come first?
I would say both. I mean, it every week we're writing specifically for the host. So like whatever we're coming up with has to be tailored specifically to them. If it's not, we're kind of wasting our time. So yeah, but then in my own life, going through it, I have ideas that could be good for, any performer or a couple different people on the cast, or I'll text a performer a link to a video and say like this, I thought you could do something sort of an impression of this person or whatever. And yeah, things will just sort of germinate over time.
How many drafts do you usually have to go from the original idea to the final skit? And then I guess my follow-up is, like, when you are writing out the dialogue, do you allow room for like improv, or is it generally pretty close to the script?
It has to be pretty close to the script for the live sketches, because those are dependent on camera movements, and the director is following along with the script, calling the camera cuts. So as much as possible, you have to stick to that script. With the pre-tapes, there's a little bit more room for improv, and because you can do several takes of things and just kind of let people have fun with it. But for the most part, we try to be as exact as possible, because there's also time considerations and whatnot. Most sketches, especially if it's like for a specific performer, you're usually writing it with that performer, so you're kind of getting their voice as you write it. But also you get to know these people, and you get to know their rhythms, and you sort of learn what works for them and what doesn't. So yeah, when we write scripts, we write the cast member's name. We don't write character name. We write specifically in the scripts we cast them as we write them. In terms of drafts, you may have heard people talk about the SNL schedule, but like we have a writing night every Tuesday and a table read every Wednesday for the show. So we're usually writing what's going to be in that table read the night before. Oftentimes it's an all-night thing. And writers, often procrastinate and do things at the last minute, myself included. And so you don't get a lot of drafts. Like, oftentimes we'll do like a vomit draft of like just whatever we can get on the paper, just to have a bad version first, and then you go back and edit and chisel away at it. So I'd say like maybe 2 or 3, but there isn't a lot of time.
Wow, that is a very quick turnaround time.
It's extremely quick, and it's pretty fun and exhilarating when it's working, and it's crazy and overwhelming when it's not.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about like the writers sitting at the writers' table.
Yeah.
Will you like describe it for me?
The vibe is great. It's a very diverse, different group of people. Some stand-ups, some very like writer types, some just all kinds of people. People who audition like me. I was doing writing before I auditioned, so I had a bit of that training, I guess. But it's one of the most fun things about it is you get completely different people. Like I write a lot with a stand-up named Asha Ward, who's really funny. She's like 26 or 27, very different from me. And yeah, just like, I think a lot of the magic of it comes from colliding those different influences, whatever.
Yeah, like brands too.
Brands, exactly.
Do you get to choose who you're co-writing with, or is like you
Yeah.
get like an assignment?
You will very rarely get an assignment. Every once in a while, a host will have an idea, and then they'll kind of farm those out to people, say like they wanted something in this world or something with this kind of character. But no, for the most part, it kind of just evolves naturally, who you gravitate towards, who you write best with, who you have chemistry with. But those first couple years of writing there, first year especially, is very difficult, because people say that it like feels a little bit like asking someone out on a date, because it's kind of vulnerable. You're like, I have this idea. I think you're really funny. I think you could have fun on this. Do you want to write it with me? But it's kind of a big ask, because you only have so many hours on a writing night when you're like productive. So you kind of have to budget your time and figure out what things you need to focus on. That's one of the hardest parts of the job, I think. So yeah, it can be difficult to like balance those schedules with everybody, because everyone's like trying to balance 3 or 4 different sketches at once, and it gets a little crazy.
Totally. You've written a lot of my favorite SNL sketches, like Bowen Still Straight, Bowen Yang as Drone. My ultimate favorite is Bowen Yang as Moo Deng the hippo.
Thank you, yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about like the process of writing those skits?
So with Moo Deng, I believe my girlfriend said to me, like, you should do something with Moo Deng, because we had been, I think, sending each other clips of it or something. And I thought about it a little bit, and then I just kind of... I write a lot with Bowen. Bowen and I get along great. I love Bowen. I've known him for a while through UCB stuff as well. And he and I had written some fun update features before. And I was just like... I texted him. I was just like, you as Moo Deng? And he was like, I love it. And so, yeah, we wrote it. It was fun.
That's awesome. And I guess you really have to trust the person you're writing for to, like, really go there.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little, I mean, has there ever been a time when you're like, oh, I don't know, like, I'm not feeling, like, do you ever still get that sense of, like imposter syndrome? Every
week, yeah. I mean, I think the thing about comedy is that it is pretty hard to predict what will work. Like, you would be shocked what at a table read on Wednesday either feels undeniable, feels so funny, and like this will go viral and this will be a big thing, and then you see it up on its feet on Saturday and it just doesn't quite work, or vice versa. Sometimes there are things where you're like, I don't know if that's that funny, I don't really get it, and then you see it on its feet and you're like, okay, no, it does work. So comedy is, like, kind of by its nature hard to predict. Also, you know, we have a dress rehearsal Saturday from 8 to 10, and then we have the show from 11:30 to 1. And a sketch could perform completely differently at dress versus air. That happens all the time, where it will kill a dress, and then just kind of something will be off, someone will miss a cue, there will be a weird camera cut, something will happen that will kind of just put it on a weird footing, and it just never quite connects. So there's uncertainty every single week, no matter what the piece, even if it's doing well. Sometimes things get cut for weird reasons. So, like, you just can't predict.
It's funny you say that you can't predict, because you do seem to have some, like, recipe for viral skits. And I guess from the outside, it really seems like you, like, really hit the nail on the head, so to speak.
You know, well, first of all, that's because we're talking about the ones that worked. Like, there are plenty that didn't, and plenty that didn't, that I was really excited about, that don't get picked, or that get cut after dress, or get cut at the last second. So, like, yes, I guess I've been working there for 10 years. Like, I've had a few things that have gone well, but, like, no, there's definitely no recipe. I mean, I guess the closest thing you could think would be, like, what would I enjoy seeing this person do? What would be a funny thing? Would it make me laugh to see Sabrina Carpenter as a 12-year-old boy? Probably. You know, like, that's kind of the only thing to base those decisions off. It's like, what tickles me, what makes me laugh, what makes my friends laugh.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, if you could try to break it down to something that you think is gonna be successful, whether it's like, oh, every skit has this in common, do you think there's something that they have in common, or is every skit just genuinely so different and like throwing a dart kind of at a board?
It's kind of throwing a dart. Yeah, I'm trying to think, like, you know, I've enjoyed writing musical stuff. Like, those things are fun, and I try to nail a genre that maybe we haven't done in the past in the same way or whatever. But no, I don't think it's pretty ephemeral. It's pretty hard to categorize. Like, you know, someone like Bowen, someone like James Austin Johnson, someone like Heidi Gardner, like, they're such different voices and such different personalities that totally different ideas connect with each of them. You know, one idea that I write for Bowen might not work for James, and vice versa.
Yeah, I guess I can't imagine, like, someone who's not Bowen being Dobby, because it's so, like, specific to Bowen.
Yeah.
You know, or like Bowen Straight. Like, it's so, I guess your skits are just so specific to the person performing it, right?
Yeah, well, Gary Richardson came up with Bowen Is Straight. I want to give him credit for that, because it's really one of my favorite things ever. And we wrote a thing this past week with him, like a middle school grinding thing, and I sent Bowen this comment on the YouTube that was like, straight Bowen keeps winning, which I love. And we may or may not revisit that. We've done 2 of them now, and it really makes us laugh.
How do you strike a balance between, because a lot of your skits are very specific. They're about, like, micro trends that are happening in social media. They're about, like, local news, or like some hurricane, or this drone that's flying over New Jersey. How do you strike a balance between being, like, niche and specific, but still appealing to, like, SNL's audience, which is so big?
Well, it's a little tricky because you kind of have to appeal to a lot of different audiences. So you're kind of like threading a needle a little bit. Because, our boss is Lorne Michaels. He's 80. He's been around for a while, and like he has a particular reference set, and like he trusts us. He trusts the younger producers and the writers and whatnot to know what is relevant and what isn't. And obviously, he very much has his finger on the pulse. But you try to pay attention to things that are kind of bubbling up, or things that are, I mean, the drone story was like huge for a little while, but it was all over. Bowen and I were on TikTok and like seeing all the Bethany Frankel videos, all the people reacting to what was going on, and like we just thought SNL has that luxury of being within a week, so we can comment on things pretty quickly. I mean, now with social media, people are commenting instantaneously, but from a television perspective, we actually can do things pretty quickly, especially with Weekend Update. Those come together pretty last minute, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
That is crazy.
Often. Yeah.
Are you, when it gets close to the weekend, are you like sitting on your phone, like scrolling for inspiration?
Well, the thing is, the show is mostly set by Wednesday night. They pick this. We have the table read. They pick the show Wednesday night. They pick like 10 to 12 sketches. Those go into production. Those get sets, costumes, everything. And then, we have the dress rehearsal, and they determine what will make the final show. It's rare that we're like frantic on a Saturday, unless there's been some huge breaking news or something that has kind of like completely changed the conversation. And sometimes you will have to cut things or edit, change jokes that are no longer relevant or seem in bad taste because something happened. And yeah,
that was gonna be my next question, is like, when do you know that something's gonna be too sensitive or like too hot to like comment on, versus like, no, this is exactly what we need to comment on?
It's kind of just a gut check. It's kind of just what you feel. And also, like, we have the sort of checks and balances of the producers and the other people there, and like you can ask, I think we'll frequently ask each other, writers, cast members, whatever, of like, is this too far, is this too much? But in general, I think most of us try to just follow our gut and then get reeled back a little bit if we go too far, which is pretty rare.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
it also takes like having really good judgment of like editorial judgment of like not
Sure.
only what's going to be funny, but what's going to resonate with people, what's going to feel like, oh, this is exactly what I want to watch, and oh no, like this was too much, or
Totally.
it's like having that barometer of like what people like.
Totally. And it's also kind of surprising sometimes what will offend people, like things that you don't expect, or performances that you don't expect. And to some degree, people are going to be annoyed no matter what you do. Like, it's funny, for example, in that podcast sketch, like I was seeing comments that were like, how did you guys not include a 6'7" reference? Because, all the kids are saying 6'7". And I was like, that's so funny, because we get dinged all the time for like just throwing in references to like whatever people are talking about. So it's sort of a you can't win kind of thing. Like,
God, that makes me feel so old. I don't know what 6'7" is.
it means literally nothing.
I mean,
Kids just go 6'7" and they go like that. And as far as I understand, it means literally nothing.
Is it like our generation's like 1748? Like,
I think there might be a connection there. I think numbers tend to, I mean, they can mean whatever you want them to mean, I guess.
yeah. Do you feel like you need to keep up with like Gen Alpha in order to be funny?
No. I think that's kind of a lost cause for me. I don't think so. I mean, truly, like, the most is just when things bleed into my social media feeds, like the MD Foodie Boys or whatever.
Yeah, I really love that sketch, and I
thank
think
you.
it was so perfect for Sabrina Carpenter, who's probably the last person I would expect to play like a young boy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's also one of my favorites.
Sometimes I forget who said it, but I remember early on someone told me to like make a list of like archetypes that come up for the host, like what kind of personality they have, like, and then do the opposite of those too, to look at like, a little boy or whatever. Like, that's the opposite of Sabrina Carpenter. Playing against type is often a good place to start.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm thinking of like Timothée Chalamet in like rap Roundtable,
Sure.
and how he plays this sort of like rapper, and it's so different than who he is in real life.
Sure. That it's inherently kind of like surprising and weird, and you're kind of like, what is this going to be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you think surprising people or catching people a little bit off guard is like one of the things that you like would say is an ingredient of being funny?
Totally. I think if people see the joke coming, if they see what's next, they're not going to care. They're going to tune out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely. That's part of our job, I think, is to sort of surprise you, give something different. It's one of the strengths of the show, I think, is that it is literally a variety show. You know, you get a little bit of this, a little bit of that. There will be something you like and something you don't like, probably, in every episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, so I work in news, right? And I think what I like so much about SNL is it consistently will comment on like politics. It'll consistently comment on the news in a way that feels like it's very clear what the commentary is, and like I wonder if you think there's something very liberating about satire as like a way to comment on something. I almost wonder, sometimes I think it does more for like Americans than actual news, you know?
I think it definitely serves a function, for sure. I mean, I think that there's something very cathartic about seeing stuff you're thinking about or you're concerned about being made fun of, being kind of laughed about. I think it totally serves a function. I mean, it's kind of what I've been drawn to my whole life, and I love that kind of satirical side of things, for sure.
Yeah. Do you consider yourself like a journalist as well, or no?
Definitely not.
Yeah,
No.
I guess it's a very I mean, I think in a way it's like satire plus journalism. Obviously, you're commenting on local like current events, but in a very, very like satirical way.
You know, I mean, yeah, I think one thing they encourage us to do there is to have a clear sort of point of view, because if you're just writing a generic sketch about Trump or about whatever, it runs out of gas pretty quickly. Like you have to have some kind of angle. I mean, even like, to bring up the podcasting again, like having Trump on it was really fun, because watching James kind of do his thing as Trump is hilarious for the absurdity of it, but also like, yeah, I mean, obviously there's a satirical edge to it.
Has there been a time where you have a show and it's already set, and then there's like news that happens between Wednesday and when the show airs, and you're like, oh my God, I need to react to this news like right now?
That happens all the time. Yeah. I mean, I remember my second year, the Access Hollywood tape, the Trump Access Hollywood tape came out on a Friday, I think. And it was one of the more fun days in the writer's room that night, because we were just kind of processing it together and laughing about it and kind of throwing out all kinds of jokes, you know, and because the head writers at the time, I believe, it was Chris Kelly, Sarah Schneider, they were kind of formulating what they wanted to do and talking about it with Lauren and talking about it with the producers. And so it was very much a idea in motion that we were kind of figuring out as the day went on.
It sounds a little stressful to me.
I'll give you one example of a joke that happened very last minute on the Dobby thing. We had the idea, we wanted Dobby to be freed at the end with an article of clothing, but we didn't quite know what it was. And we had a couple different versions of it that didn't totally work. And at dress, I believe the version that Bowen, it was like J.K. Rowling gave him, I think the idea was like, what's a very straight article of clothing? And so it was like, Master Rowling gave me this Rams jersey, and it was like an LA Rams jersey. And like, that was funny, but it didn't quite land with the audience. And so we really wanted that to land. Like, we weren't sure how to do it exactly. And I remember I went into the Weekend Update office to talk to them about it, and I don't remember what the idea was, that I was like, nah, is this okay? I don't know, maybe. And then like, we were just talking about it, and then suddenly they K Rowling, I was trying to think of a pun on they and J.K. Rowling, something, and it just popped into my head, and I just suggested it, and they made it really, really quickly. And that was like at like 10:45 or something, and the show starts at 11:30. And
wow.
So they quickly, our graphics people threw something together, printed the t-shirt. We didn't even have time to like run it in front of an audience or anything. So that's pretty scary, because you're sort of like, I hope this will work. I think it's funny, but things that I find funny all the time don't work. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
it really is like throwing darts at a board and
It really is.
hoping something will stick. But obviously, you're good at throwing the dart.
I've done it enough now that you do learn to trust your gut. You learn to be like, I think this is funny and I think this will land.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about the White House Correspondents' Dinner. How did that sketch come together? I mean, that's one also, like, it's such a funny sketch.
I mean, that's all Ego. She had the idea that she wanted to do stand-up about the dinner. That was her idea. And, like, I think, so we wrote that. It was me, her, Josh Patton, Asha Ward, and Carl Tart. And we just kind of got in a room and threw out a bunch of, dumb jokes. And it kind of evolved into this sort of Def Comedy Jam persona. It evolved into this, that was just the stuff that was making us laugh, was like telling the jokes in that kind of delivery, perspective, thinking of something so sort of boring as food, but talking about it in that way was making us laugh. And it just kind of like naturally evolved, and we felt like she needed a character name, and yeah.
Do you have a skit that I feel like you're most proud of, or that was the most fun to write in like recent times?
That's hard. I really like the sketch Friendos, which is with Chris Redd and Donald Glover and Kenan Thompson, which was a parody of Migos, I guess. I wrote that with Chris and Gary Richardson and Kenan, and I really liked that one. I just had a lot of fun with that, and Donald Glover was unbelievable. And
I also really like parent-teacher conference.
Thank you. Yeah, that was fun. That was Ego and I just kind of, you mentioned improv. Like, Ego's an improviser. I came from improv. We kind of just like, we wanted to write a sketch together, and she threw out some scenarios, and we were like, maybe something at a parent-teacher conference, and we kind of just riffed it out and figured it out.
Yeah, I think what a common thread in a lot of your sketches is the relatability, like parent-teacher conference, like things that sort of everyday normal people will do. It's things that you're like, oh, I feel like I've been in that scenario.
I think that is part of the SNL training of like giving the audience an in, like being like, what is the average like person on their couch watching this? What are they going to connect to? How are they going to be interested? Because you don't want them to tune out. You want them to be intrigued. And chances are that's from finding something that's like, yeah, relatable or recognizable,
Yeah, you mentioned the SNL training. I'm curious, like, are there other things that they train you in order to be a good comedy writer?
It's pretty like, you learn on your own. Like, it's pretty sink or swim in the sense that, like, your first week, you're really just kind of thrown in the deep end of like, okay, write 2 things, see you at table read. Wow. And it's kind of like, wow, that's it's scary for sure. And you look, and everybody bombs. You learn to bomb. You bomb a lot, and you learn that it doesn't kill you, and not to be afraid of it, and to take risks.
Yeah,
and then you just learn from seeing what works and what doesn't.
Totally. I'm sure there's a lot of people who are listening to this who are fans of SNL, but also who might be writers or might be comedy writers. I'm wondering if you have any advice for people who are writing comedy, who really, want to make it. Where do people start out?
I would say don't write what you think people want, because most of the time people can smell that, and it just people don't care. Write the stuff that only you can write. Like, write the stuff that makes your friends laugh, that makes you laugh, and chances are that will be more interesting than you think. And that's where like a lot of my favorite stuff that I've ended up getting on the air has come from like just what makes me and whoever I'm writing it with laugh, and like many of these things like you just assume don't have a chance, and you're like, whatever, I'm just gonna write this and see what happens. And that's often the stuff that works the best.
Yeah.
Like that rap roundtable thing, like I wasn't sure that was gonna work at all. Like it at table, I was like, who listens to SoundCloud rap here? Like, does anyone care at the job? Like, will it resonate with anyone? And so you just never know.
I mean, yeah, again, it sounds like you have so many sources of inspiration, whether it's like the music you listen to what you're watching online, like literally asking your friends, hey, do you think this is funny?
Yeah.
You have to be so plugged in, and you really have to exist like outside of your little bubble and be just like out in the world.
Yeah, I think that's another important part about doing comedy in general. And I remember people used to talk about that at UCB, because I went through a phase where I was obsessed and I would go to shows every night of the week and really kind of just take in as much comedy as you can. And I remember teachers there saying like, yes, but you also have to have a life. Like you have to do things that aren't comedy because you have to have fuel. You have to have material. You have to have references. You have to, meet people, like read books, see movies, like just experience all kinds of different things in order to like have something to draw from.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it becomes a snake eating its own tail, and that is pretty boring.
Totally. I mean, you have to go out and watch movies and meet people and go to fun dinners, and it's part of the job.
Absolutely.
So I asked this of all my guests, but how would you define success in your industry? I mean, you're at the very, very top of your game. You're at SNL. How, for people who might not be at SNL, but they're interested in comedy writing, what is success as a comedian and as a writer?
That's hard to answer because I think it's changing a lot. I think that and no one really knows right now. Like SNL is very much, it's been around for 50 years. Like it's very much, it's been a thing for a long time, and I hope it continues to be. But no one really knows what comedy's going to look like in 10 or 20 years. I mean, on a sort of personal level, writing stuff that genuinely makes you laugh and that you stand behind, that other people connect to, is very rewarding. And having an idea with your friends and turning that into something is really special and a marker of success in and of itself, I think. And honestly, if you keep doing that, people will notice, I think, over time.
And I think people do notice, when you're being authentic and
Absolutely.
Not writing for everyone, just writing for yourself, and people will catch on to that.
Totally.
And I really, really think SNL, not to sound like a fangirl, I really think SNL uplifts a lot of people, me included. I mean, whenever I'm having a bad day, I'll go and I'll just rewatch SNL skits. So, thank you for being on the show.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you for your writing, and this was really great.
Thank you. This is so fun. So great talking to you.
Thanks.